Anyone claiming to be a feminist today is either knowingly nefarious, indoctrinated, or simply ignorant. Tag yourself, I'm knowingly nefarious. Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and I am back with another tragic Twitter account. This is sort of a spiritual successor to my video about the pro-patriarchy account, which by the way I bring up partly because of this. Thank you Twitter for listening, he has been warned. So this is an account that confused me at first glance. I'm pretty sure that the pro-patriarchy thing and me going through his Twitter, even though I was doing it to report offensive things, I'm pretty sure that's why I then got recommended viewing this account. I don't know why Twitter now thinks that I want to see conservative anti-women rhetoric, because I don't, but then once I see it, I can't look away. So this is called Humbled Females. The reason it confused me at first is because it comes across as, it describes itself as a community. They've got a website, they've got an account on FetLife, which one of my half-joking suspicions from my last video, they've proven that true. Totally just kink implanted onto society to make them feel better about their particular sexual persuasions. That aside, it's a self-described community. It appears on the surface as a community of women. It's not. I suspect it's mostly, if not exclusively, men, and there are posts that indicate why I think that, but it's sort of like it's built under the guise that it's like a women's group, probably to make it seem better and maybe affect women more. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little conspiracy theorist about it, but the point is it sucks. And so I'm going to go through some of the most wonderful tweets and talk about my thoughts and feelings on them. And maybe at some point in the future we'll do another Twitter video and I'll be able to say that this account too has suffered the wrath of Twitter. So here we go. It's conservative Twitter gone mad. Loads of the account is stuff like this first tweet I'm going to show you, where they just share news articles of men doing great things, or the historical celebration of an invention, or something like that, and they tag it with like, men are amazing, love men, whatever. And if that was all this Twitter was, I would kind of understand, because sometimes there is a kind of lack of positivity around men that I think is partly the result of toxic masculinity. They would probably disagree. Human Progress shared the anniversary of the invention of air conditioning. So Humbled Females shares this post about air conditioning and says, #men have done such great things that we take for granted. #masculinity, #hero worship. I just think the fact that air conditioning exists and #hero worship is like, I don't know. The more I look at this particular Twitter, the more I think that, man, the bar is like so low for men. We should worship men as heroes because of how someone invented air conditioning. Next up we have my absolute favourite thing, biological determinism, which I said this in the last video actually, and I've said this in my everyday life I don't know how many times, especially because I'm a woman working in a male-dominated field. Biological determinism is bullshit. The idea that men and women are predisposed to not enjoy or enjoy certain things. It's social. It's all social. Like, aside from the obvious physical differences that typically men are larger and women are smaller, there's no reason that women are hardwired to be less interested in technology, you know, or physical activity. There's no thing there. And actually, if I remember correctly, the actual post that led me to this Twitter account was an article about the discovery you might have heard about recently that indicated that women were also hunter-gatherers back in the old ancient times, and it kind of like dispels this, or helps dispel this myth about women always being homemakers and staying at home while the men were the hunters. It showed that women hunt as well, which I think is really interesting, and this Twitter account posted the article and basically said that it was lies because it was biased in favour of feminism, and I don't know. So I looked at the article further and obviously investigated it, and I could see no evidence for any kind of bias. The majority of archaeologists and scientists are men. There's no reason to think that this would be biased towards some kind of feminist agenda, and that was the point where I was like, this Twitter is insane, I must look further. Anyway, here's this tweet. I should probably move my camera along a little bit so that we've got a little more room to look at tweets, as long as you can still see El Slapo. If you want to join in on fun things like naming my frogs, you should come watch me on Twitch at Emma Little Duck. I'm going live twice a week at the moment. It's good fun, you should check it out. Anyway, this tweet. Women are biologically wired to want a dominant #man. A #dominant man simply knows who he is and what he wants. That sounds pretty normal. I don't I don't know that that is what dominant means. He's strong, he's confident, he's bold. Most importantly, he leads rather than follows, and that's what women crave. If all men led rather than followed, then we would have, you know, whatever 3 million societies with one man leading and then nobody following. Do you know what I mean? Men who don't fit their stereotypical idea of a dominant male, who are in happy, healthy relationships, the many, many, many of those that exist, all kind of disprove this content. This is one of my favourites because of the beautiful irony. It's a quote from Cato. I begin to speak only when I'm certain what I'll say isn't better left unsaid. If that was the case, this entire Twitter should not exist. This is immediately followed by another hilariously ironic quote, this time from Winston Churchill. There is nothing noble being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. And yet, this entire Twitter revolves around men being superior to women. But there's supposed to be no nobility in that. This next one's really weird. There's just this photo of a woman sort of squashed into a cupboard, like she's really gonna do in her neck or her back. Like a high cupboard as well, so I don't know how she got in there either. And the text just said a place to quiet her mind. And she doesn't look very happy in the photo, which I think is worth noting. The humbled female's account is so peaceful and a little smiley face. If you're like me, and you find the noise and visuals of the world to be overstimulating, sometimes it is very nice to hide in a small, dark, quiet place. I have enjoyed many an hour hiding under a table or a blanket or finding a lovely dark corner to exist in. However, contextually, the existence of this Twitter account and everything else that it stands for, this post is definitely not saying anywhere on it or in it, if you as a person would like to find a quiet place to rest, then do that and enjoy it. This is saying, put your wife in a cupboard. Like a place to quiet her mind. Again, maybe I'm being conspiratorial and reading too much into this, but to me, I read it like your wife is being annoying and needs to be sort of taught to, you know, speak her mind less, put her in a cupboard for a while. Now, if you're not a British person, then you might not understand my particular feelings on this newspaper. I will just say I did a derisive snort at the fact that they shared a Daily Mail article on how the pill transforms your personality. For some reason, okay, lots of this right-wing conservative group are very anti-birth control because of how it affects women and so on. This is something that crosses over with feminist rhetoric as well, because it's problematic that women are made to take birth control that can have really negative effects on your emotions, physiology, whatever. The feminist side is kind of saying we should consider options for men, which studies have shown are also very successful, but have usually been put down due to the fact that men didn't like the side effects, which is, again, sort of an amusing irony. I don't really know what the conservative rhetoric is here. Like, what do they want? They don't like the pill. First of all, medication affects everybody differently. Everybody will have a different experience. Some people need to take the pill for reasons completely unrelated to birth control because of medical conditions and so on. So I don't really understand their particular hatred of it and their assumption that it makes all women crazy for some reason seems to be the sort of thought. But I don't know what they want instead. Is it that they're anti-birth control overall and they just want people to have more babies? If you're very conservative and anti-birth control, would you please tell me what it is that you want? Because I genuinely don't understand. Back to humbled females. So they share this Daily Mail article about how the pill can affect your personality, and they share this quote, "The pill fundamentally changes who we are as people. It affects sex, attraction, stress, hunger, eating patterns, emotion regulation, friendships, aggression, mood, learning, and so many other things." True. You could say that about any medication, though. Almost any medication. You could write an article about antidepressants and say exactly the same thing, but they haven't, which means that there's an agenda specific to birth control here that they have, which, again, I don't know what it is. This is a good one. Okay, I asked my boyfriend about this one, and his answer was, like, way more intelligent and eloquent than anything I could say, so I'm going to share that with you too. This was a tweet from a woman who says, "What can we do for you men?" Humbled females replied, "Think thrice about sending your daughters to university." Brackets, identity bollocks. Identity bollocks. I was trying to say politics and it came out wrong and I said identity bollocks. That is what just happened. Think thrice about sending your daughters to university, identity politics central. So this is something that we saw on the pro-patriarchy account as well, and I see on many of these conservative anti-feminist things, which is that university is identity politics central. First of all, I don't think they demonstrate, again, I'm stealing this from my boyfriend, I don't think they demonstrate a good understanding of what identity politics is. In my experience and opinion, the reason that university is what these people would call identity politics central, if you'll forgive the air quote, is because the universities attract people from all over the country and all over the world. They attracted more people from around the world before Brexit, but what can we do? By going to university, you are forced to meet and interact with people from all kinds of different groups, people of different races, people of different genders, people whose experience of life is so different from yours that you didn't know that it existed or that it was an option. That is true. In that respect, it's identity politics central because people of many different identities exist in the same place. And by that token, it makes you more understanding and experienced in dealing with different kinds of people, because you meet more of them. It makes sense. It just makes sense. That's not to say that you don't learn and experience these things if you don't go to university, but it's a very sort of quick and easy way to understand how different people are when you bring loads of different people together and force them to learn and work and live together in a short period of time and make friends. And it's a wonderful place for that kind of learning experience. It's hugely beneficial. So I entirely disagree, obviously, with this first comment that you should think thrice about sending your daughters to university because of identity politics. We covered it. It was more explicit in the pro-patriarchy video. The reason you avoid sending them to university is because they realise that they can be independent and be whoever and whatever they want to be, which again, because of the nature of how these people want relationships between men and women to be, it's largely keep women sheltered so they don't experience too much outside of what you teach them. Learn to identify and reject leftist activism, no matter how good or polite the rhetoric feels. What about leftist activist men? What about men who lean politically to the left? What would that help them? Let's think of a leftist equal rights. Equal rights for everyone regardless of gender, race, etc. Apparently, to help men, we need to reject that ideology of equal human rights for all people. This anti-left rhetoric seems to, and I know this is the case because of how often I get called a Marxist by people who clearly have no concept of what they're talking about politically. People call me a Marxist because I'm a woman with short hair. This problem that many conservatives have with leftism, I'm doing a lot of air quotes today, I'm so sorry. I'm becoming one of the people. The problem that they have tends to be that they assume Animal Farm. You know, to be left-leaning, especially it's very different in British politics because our politics are so centralised that to be leaning slightly left or right is basically completely central compared to, say, the USA. But generally, they sort of assume it's like the worst kind of communism because you care about equal rights. So learn to identify and reject leftist activism. Deal with facts, not political correctness. Your sensitivities are not an argument. I agree. Deal with facts, such as the fact that archaeologists have discovered some evidence that women were also hunter-gatherers. Of course, when they dealt with that fact, they valued their sensitivities over facts. So I messaged my boyfriend, as I said, and I asked him if it would help if I learned to identify and reject leftist activism, and then I shared the post with him because he was, confused. He just said, I don't understand how that helps men, which is a great reaction. He kind of pointed out that leftist activism, like I just said, is stuff like gender equality, climate action, particularly in America, there is this really extreme, we saw this with the Trump campaign actually a lot, there is this really extreme fear of communism, which means that any ideology that leans to the left, some people are terrified of, even if this leftist ideology is about saving the environment. And so Matt, my boyfriend, said the idea that leftism doesn't help men is ridiculous, and he pointed out that dismantling toxic masculinity helps the vast majority of men as well as women, which is such a good point. Matt also pointed out something fabulous that I didn't really twig, which is that this tweet is really kind of a contradiction, because he decries identity politics as though his own, I'm saying his, again, it's a community, but I think this is a question directed at men, and this group, this Twitter has answered, so clearly there's at least one man in it. He decries identity politics as like a terrible thing, as though his own conservatism and atomic family values aren't identity politics. This whole Twitter is about identity politics. It's about what men and women should be. And yet identity politics apparently are the worst thing in the world that we should avoid. I hate this one. I really hate this one. If you really thought a man was your equal, you'd have no interest in dating him. I don't know how many times I've said this now. But what about the lesbians? What about the queers? Is Matt, my current partner, is he superior to me, and that's why I want to be with him? But every time I've dated a woman in the past, it's because I've wanted to be equal or inferior, it doesn't make any sense. If you remember that there aren't only straight people, this post doesn't make sense. So if men are superior to women, then why do they have interest in dating them? Here's one where the original tweet is terrible and the humbled female's comment added is just cringe. While she should have a fear of you, immediate red flag. Immediate sirens going off. Red sirens blaring out, the flags are flying. Whoever this is, don't date him. Please don't date this man. He thinks you should be afraid of him. That he started with it being an absolute given, while she should have a fear of you. No, your partner shouldn't have a fear of you. Because you're a man and a much stronger force than her, but it shouldn't be the primary emotion. Yep, I agree with that. Definitely shouldn't be the primary emotion. Don't think it should be any emotion, to be honest. Fear. I don't think fear is one of the ones you tick off as what you want to feel when you meet your partner. Just my personal opinion. Primary emotion should be of devotion, submission, love, and gaining good girl points from you. That's all a happy feminine girl wants. I'm a happy girl. Whether I'm feminine or not, again, is subject to debate and subjectivity. A lot of people think no. I think I'm quite feminine, but it's obviously an extremely subjective term, so whatever. That's not what I want. I don't want good girl points because I'm not a fucking dog. This one, again, is a really stupid sort of... I can't think of any other word to call it. It is stupid. It's a very narrow view of what men and women are again. So, women, being a housewife is such hard work. Men. And then a video of some men working, maybe on like an oil, maybe they're drilling for oil or something. Men doing difficult physical labour. First of all, not all men, obviously, not all men do incredibly difficult physical labouring jobs. Second of all, that doesn't change how much hard work being a housewife is. You can have one person have an extremely hard job and another person have a job that is a completely different kind of field, or, have a stay-at-home job looking after children, and that can also be hard work. It just doesn't mean anything because it doesn't apply to real life. It's like taking one scenario of one couple and being like, well, this is everyone. It's the Stone Age. Man build fire, woman sweep hut. Even though it turns out women were hunter-gatherers as well, although that's not true because of feminist bias or whatever. This is another cringy post type. Sorry, coffee. This is another cringy post type that is everywhere on this Twitter. It's so condescending. I'll read you this one and then I'll talk about some of the other ones. Females. While at home during the virus scare, this is an excellent time to learn new domestic skills or brush up on your existing ones. Cleaning, cooking, crocheting, candle making, bread making, soap making. The list is near endless. Get back in touch with your hashtag femininity. Sure. If you've got loads of time on your hands now, learn some new skills. They don't have to be domestic. Men, if you've got loads of time on your hands, you can also learn domestic skills. There's no reason men can't crochet or make soap. Non-binary people, you are also allowed to make soap. It kind of assumes so many things. It assumes that all the women during the bad times virus, as I like to call it, are homemakers with nothing to do. It assumes that they all enjoy stereotypically female things, like cleaning and cooking. Everyone, regardless of gender, should know how to cook and clean. Those are basic survival skills. You need to know those things to be an adult in the world. If you really want to crochet, learn to crochet, sure. It doesn't make you a better woman if you know how to crochet. It doesn't make you a worse man if you know how to crochet. Oh, here it is. Here's the article I was talking about earlier. Perfect. That makes life easier. A woman's place out hunting with spears, study finds. This falls into the category of looking for evidence to fit your pet sociological beliefs. No, it doesn't. Science is supposed to be about looking for examples to disprove your theory. No, it's supposed to be about looking for examples to disprove your hypothesis, but since nobody understands the meaning of a scientific theory, I'll let that one slide. Why? There is no evidence. This Twitter indicates no evidence, and the article which I've read indicates, again, like I've said 5 times, no evidence that they were looking for examples to prove a theory. None! If you really want to be fact-based rather than feeling-based, then you have to accept all facts and discoveries, including ones that you don't like. What does it affect you now? What does it affect you and your ideology and how you want to live your life if a woman thousands of years ago hunted with spears? Oh, this one's really creepy. A woman needs to be wanted. She needs to feel the desire of the desired male around her, over her, and inside her. This need manifests in submission and surrender. She is passive, so that he may pervade. Given that they have spelt he with a capital H, I assume they mean God. For real, they capitalise he as he and male, as in just normal men. They've capitalised it like they're a deity. How fucking odd is that? Your husband is not your god. What about women who date women? Ugh, this one makes me feel gross. What have you been doing lately to look better for your man? I've kind of been trying to learn how eyeliner works. I don't think my man cares. Obviously, the implication of this picture, the fruit, the workout gear, is like, you should be fit and healthy for your man. You should be fit and healthy for you. You should be fit and healthy because it feels better to be fit and healthy. Okay, this one is particularly irritating. They shared this tweet by Bridget Gabrielle that says, all of the fashion magazines featured Michelle Obama, yet none have featured First Lady Melania Trump. It's a national disgrace that our beautiful First Lady has not been featured on the covers. So this woman is upset that Michelle Obama was featured on magazine covers, but Melania Trump hasn't been. I'm not American, I don't see American magazines, I don't know if that's true or not. I feel like I've seen lots of pictures of Melania looking beautiful online. I feel like when Trump was campaigning, I saw her everywhere, and I feel like I've seen an equal amount of Michelle Obama and Melania Trump. So I don't know if that's true, but I'm not American, so I can't really comment. Humbled Female says, both should be busy serving their men, not egotistically gracing the covers of magazines. If Michelle Obama has proven anything, it's that even if your husband is a former president, you can be such a badass woman in your own right. She is wonderful. But my point being that she's done so many incredible endeavours on her own. These are both women that live their own lives. They have their own ideologies, they have their own things that they do. This is another one that I consider deeply hypocritical, and I know that some people don't like discussing hypocrisy as part of a critique because people are inherently hypocritical. I disagree. I do think people are inherently hypocritical, but I think that it serves to point it out because it proves that accounts like this, for example, are picking and choosing, and they don't have a coherent ideology on, you know, whether women should be having photographs taken for magazines or not, because they constantly share photos, they share an article about a British woman being I hate the term, being a trad wife, and they have no criticism for her at all. They have no criticism on the fact that she's being interviewed for a magazine, no criticism of the fact that she is egotistically having her photos taken for a magazine. They thought it was brilliant. But because these women that she mentions aren't trad wives, suddenly it's a problem. That is hypocrisy. Major matriarchal civilizations never emerged in history. But if they did to the point of world dominance like patriarchy, would everything be picture perfect today? Would there be no wrongdoing in the world? It's a naive fantasy to believe so. Who are they talking to? Who is out there saying matriarchy should dominate the world and everything would be fine? People aren't saying that. I like this one. So the original post here, the video that they have shared, is about this statue that's been erected. I can't remember where. It's opposite the courthouse where Harvey Weinstein went to trial. And there's a statue outside of Medusa holding Hercules' head. Because I think the original story is Hercules beheads Medusa. So it's her holding his head as sort of a statement of female power, I think was the intention. I think it's very creative as an artwork. And I think the fact that it stares down the courthouse is really powerful socially, and it gets people talking, even people like this. I think this proves that it had the desired effect, whether you agree with the statue or not. Obviously, Humbled Females does not. Medusa is an amazing display of open and socially acceptable misandry. Is it? So if there was a newly erected statue of Hercules holding Medusa's head, would they tweet, "This is an amazing display of of open and socially acceptable misogyny"? No, of course they wouldn't. They think, I guess, that this is misandry because it's in protest against men hurting and abusing women. I don't see that as misandry. I see that as standing up for women not being abused by men in positions of power. What does it say about Western society where such brazen iconography of violence against men, again, if it was the other way around, and Hercules was holding Medusa's head, would they think that this was violence against women? No, I don't think they would. Coupled with female eroticism, have you seen art? Have you been to a gallery? Because you would be quite horrified. Violence against men coupled with female eroticism is presented for casual public consumption. #MeToo. The fact that they take Me Too, which was a movement, well, it is a movement, I guess, for women to feel safe and comfortable coming out about having experienced abuse in some form by men, is disgusting. Because they don't like this statue of a fictional, mythical creature holding a man's head. It's about to get transphobic real quick, so if that's going to upset you, skip ahead a minute or two. Obviously, it's not my opinion, it's Humbled Females. Emma Watson said trans people are who they say they are and deserve to live their lives without being constantly questioned or told they aren't who they say they are. Love her, stan Emma Watson. A hairdresser once told me I looked like Emma Watson and I almost cried. Humbled Females says in response to this, "That's not really how reality works, and this is the kernel of the problem in these discussions. The observer has every right to plainly, albeit politely, state the factual reality before them, that adult biological females are women, and adult biological males are men. They do have the right to say that, in that they have the right to be wrong. Trans people deserve sympathy, but the other 99.4% of the population does too. Sympathy for what? Let's avoid the mental contagion of openly embracing things that are clearly false, wrong. Again, it's a rejection of modern science, it's a rejection of facts. It dismisses things like intersex people who have always existed. It dismisses a whole history of other genders outside of men and women that have existed for thousands and thousands of years, that have existed for as long as human beings have, because they would rather twist reality to fit their agenda. Embracing things that are clearly false and forming cultural norms and policies on them. I would argue that arguing that there are only men and women and that gender is not a spectrum is what we have done in the past to force a cultural norm and policies on them that has really hurt and damaged people. So I kind of agree with the point that we shouldn't. We shouldn't just follow things that are clearly false, like the idea that only men and women exist and there's nothing outside of that. It will lead to dark places once the precedent is widely established. Completely agree. We're just coming from slightly different perspectives on that part. This is a reply to somebody. I don't have the original picture, I'm very sorry, but I obviously thought that this reply on its own was worth noting. Feminism is by its nature not only anti-male, but anti-human. No, it's not. I've got to wait for this motorbike to leave now. I would probably have like a full-length video if I just cut together every clip of a time that a motorbike has interrupted me. I'm a feminist and also a humanist. I wouldn't be a feminist if it was anti-human on account of being a humanist. Part of the reason that I use the term humanist more frequently than feminist is because people have these warped ideas of what feminism is. And so fine. If it makes you feel more comfortable and understand my ideology better and we can have a better conversation if I use the word humanist, then I will. But I am a feminist based on the reality of what feminism is, which is equal rights for everybody. I believe all people should have equal rights. I don't understand how that's anti-men. It invites discord between the sexes by stirring unending conflict between male and female. This is a difficult one to talk about, because if you are able to ignore conflict, so to speak, in any situation like this, I considered this a lot during the protests for Black Lives Matter, because a lot of people were we should just get along, why do we have to make it about race, why do we have to make it about gender, blah blah blah. And if you are either a woman who wants to be submissive and looked after by her husband and fulfill all of these traditional conservative roles, then you can ignore this conflict fine, because it doesn't affect your life personally. When you're a woman who faces challenges at work, for example, again, based on my own experience, when you face challenges to do with your gender on a daily basis, there are many women in the world who still struggle to fight for the right to be educated. There are many women in the world who still struggle to leave their home without a man accompanying them. To be able to ignore that as unnecessary conflict is the result of privilege. I know people like this hate the word privilege, but that's what it is. You don't have to be concerned about it because it doesn't affect you. If every day you suffer, you can't go outside, you can't drive a car because of your gender, then this is not unnecessary conflict. This is your life. This is your right to exist as a person equal to any other. If you were pro-human in the sense of humanitarianism, then you would be pro-feminism. Anyone claiming to be a feminist today is either knowingly nefarious, indoctrinated, or simply ignorant. Tag yourself, I'm knowingly nefarious. As a woman, spending your days in service to your husband is so peaceful. You get to stay home, you get to stay home, cook, bake, tidy, fold. Oh my god, are you telling me if I become a housewife, I get to fold? No fucking way! Bake, tidy, fold, sweep, read, exercise, etc. This slow-paced, self-sacrificial lifestyle is infinitely rewarding. To you! The missing magical 2 words. This is infinitely rewarding to me. I love the life I lead because I do things that I love. I get to do things that I love every day. That doesn't mean that every woman wants the same thing. Not every woman loves folding and sweeping. Okay, we're about to get pro-spousal abuse again, so again, if you need to skip past this, skip ahead a couple of minutes. A tweet from somebody called Antihero Kate, who says, if you make sex a duty, then it will indeed become a duty. The wedge that will cause is a very, very dark hole. Humbled Female says, for a woman in an established relationship, sex is a duty. No, it's not. It's the feminist rejection of this idea and the current cultural obsession with making women happy. God, imagine wanting women to be happy. Fucking lefties. That had become quite the political wedge fashioned between the sexes. The fact that we are anti whether you're married or not is not some sort of evil agenda. It's because we don't want people to suffer abuse in a relationship. If that's some sort of crazy socialist agenda, then I guess I'm a crazy socialist, because I don't want people to feel like they are obligated to have sex, even if it would cause them distress, emotionally or physically, or both. Usually both. I hate that whenever I find this kind of account, they are almost always pro-spousal abuse. And the fact that it's always casually buried in between stupid posts about doing crochet and learning how to make candles is just... it's really upsetting. Oh, this one just made me laugh because one of the hashtags. Have a passion for cleaning and cooking. Be feminine and be devoted to your husband. Hashtag femininity. Hashtag Stepford wife. Have you read or seen Stepford Wives? It's not a happy story. It's like, it's a dystopia. The point of the Stepford Wives is that it's a dystopia. It's not good, right? If anything, Stepford Wives is promoting a feminist agenda. It's a fucking horror that the women are being replaced by submissive robots, okay? Spoilers if you've never seen Stepford Wives, I'm sorry. You should watch it. 7 biological facts that make women the submissive gender. Smaller when healthy. There are men who are smaller than me, so I don't really know. Does that mean that in that case, you shouldn't be submissive? Less physical strength. Again, I know a lot of men who are a lot weaker than, you know, a lot of female bodybuilders, for example. Point 3 just says menstrual cycle madness, which is not really a point. I feel like you have to illustrate what you actually mean by that. Why does menstrual cycle madness mean you should be submissive? Oh, this next one's really gross. Our genitalia is a cavity made to be impregnated. Ew. I don't have I strongly reject that, okay? I have a womb and ovaries and everything, and I strongly reject the notion that what I have is a cavity made to be impregnated, because that's disgusting. For reproduction, it is only necessary that the male is aroused. Why can somebody with a vagina even get aroused in the first place? It does help reproduction. Breasts for feeding his babies. Again, what does that have to do with being submissive? Women have breasts for feeding babies, and therefore should be submissive. How do those 2 points even vaguely relate? This is like the 7 stupidest things in a list I've ever read. Okay, that's everything that I would like to cover from this Twitter, because I'm tired of it. It's trying to spread an ideology, trying to spread identity politics, whilst arguing that identity politics are the worst thing in the world. It's talking about following facts rather than feelings, and then specifically ignoring multitudes of facts to promote their own agenda. It's deeply hypocritical, it's hugely offensive, it's transphobic, it's anti-women, and it's all wrapped up and promoted by basically pretending people who think otherwise are crazy extremists. I'm getting really tired of sexist Twitter. Somebody asked me a while ago if I have seen, I've forgotten. Ben Shapiro's sister. I've forgotten her YouTube name now, but Ben Shapiro's sister. Somebody asked me if I had seen any of her stuff, and I know of her, and I've watched a couple of people comment on her stuff a long time ago. It's mildly disturbing. What I've seen has been mildly disturbing, but I haven't looked into her enough to really have an opinion. But if that is something that people are interested in me looking into, then let me know. And by the time this goes out, I'll have remembered what her channel is called, and I'll feel really bad. I'll put a pop-up on the screen so that everybody knows that I have a working brain at some point. So let me know if you'd like to see that kind of stuff. Let me know if you're interested in this kind of commentary. You can reach me on all of my social medias, which are in the description below. Again, live streaming every week, every Wednesday. I've preliminarily penciled in every Saturday, but don't know how that will fare long term because, you know, life. But at the moment I'm doing Spooky Saturdays, which I'm about to go and do in an hour, actually. I hope you're having a very wonderful week, and I will see you very soon.